Okay, so this is part 2 of chapter 3. There's probably going to be like 20 parts to this. Okay, so Steve was the head of national promotions for alternative rock radio. When I finished Solarium, which was my second Sister Soleil record, um, he had a hard time. We all had a hard time getting it to radio because mostly of this thing that happened. There was this band, and it was called Korn, and Peter had signed them, and they were absolutely fantastic. New sound. It was like listening to the music was like listening to an earthquake, and being at one of their shows was being in an earthquake. Anyway, they were so influential that there was this whole slew of bands that wanted to be just like them. But the only thing that was different about the bands that just wanted to be like them is that they hated women. It's this, I don't know why. It became very misogynistic. I was bummed about that because I really loved that sound. Not Korn, but the bands that wanted to be like Korn. So this kind of music had taken over rock radio. They were selling so many records that I think alternative rock, where they would play, Alanis Morissette and Tori Amos and Fiona Apple and hopefully Sister Soleil, they didn't have any room anymore because they started playing these new metal bands because they were so successful, and they took over alternative rock radio, and it turned into like modern rock, which was basically, it just went away, it all became rock. So we were having trouble, and the interesting thing about that, though, I'll say, is that there was a sort of slap back to the whole I hate girls thing too, I hate boys thing, which was like the Lilith Fair. It was like Family Values tour versus the Lilith Fair. Family Values was always had these kind of new metal bands, and the Lilith Fair had mostly these feminists, and so they were just the polar opposites, and I was in the middle of that, and I felt really, my heart was broken because I love all music, and it just got all divided up, So, so Steve and I went on a promotion tour where we would go and talk to these radio stations ourselves, and try to get them to add our radio based on my charm. And so we went to 35 cities. I think it was, I don't know, it was ridiculous, but I'm terrified of flying. Like white knuckle, like panic, like pass out, like scream, the worst flyer ever. And I take so many flights, and it's just, I cry, and I'm the worst. Well, poor Steve had to endure this with me. He had no idea. Nobody told him how terrified I was of flying, so I'd be next to him, I'd be crying and rocking, and he'd be like, oh my God. And so they brought Chris in to pretty much babysit me with him, to hold my hand flying. It was so funny, oh my God. But Steve was also the one person that I felt that I could be normal with, I felt like I was completely kind of crazy everywhere else, but with him I felt normal, and I never really stayed in the hotels in New York. I always stayed with Steve and his family in New Jersey, and to this day I'll do that. I love them. So that happened. So radio fell apart because there was those radio stations literally said to my face, we think you're great, but we cannot play your music because we can't play female rock artists anymore on our format, kind of. It all changed, and I was devastated, and the record plopped. I cannot tell you how absolutely painful that is. I mean, I try to have a good sense of humor about it all, but the reality is that I could not believe that it after all that I had done to get to that place, that it just in a flash was over. It tanked, you know? People didn't like it. I was devastated, you know, and so I went back to Doug, and I don't know what to do. What do I do? And he's like, you know, I don't know what to do either. The only thing I know that works right now is pop. I hate pop. He's like, I knew he was gonna say that, you know, and he's like, you're gonna have to maybe do a pop record. I was like, no, pop. I hate pop. So I went back to the UK and to work on a pop record. I had to approach this pop record differently in order to not have a nervous breakdown, because I felt like I was a sellout. But I couldn't help it, you know? There was no options for me. So I thought, okay, well, I will try to challenge myself. I want to challenge myself to make a credible pop record. Now, I had not had a boyfriend, like, in almost 2 years. You know, running around cities and suitcases and stuff, you know, it's hard to have relationships. Doug said, you know, there's really only one thing to write about in pop, which is, you know, love. Actually, you know, the same, love and breakups. That's about it. Well, I haven't had a relationship in 2 years. I mean, like, I really forgot what it was like. So, again, I had to be creative, and I had to come up with an imaginary boyfriend, and, you know, name him Henry, and write pretend love letters to Henry, and to inspire myself to write these songs about nobody, a pretend person. Okay, wait, I'm gonna stop it because I don't want to lose it. Hold on.